Welcome to the IT Matters Podcast, where we explore why IT matters and matters pertaining to IT. Here's your host, Aaron Bock.
Welcome to the IT Matters Podcast. Thank you for joining us today. We're excited to have you all on this lovely spring day here in Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm joined today by Sean Farrell from QDS, Quality Data Systems, based here in Charlotte, North Carolina. We'll get into Sean's background here in just a second. But for those that you are not familiar with the IT Matters podcast, we're going to be talking about why IT matters inside of an organization. Also, what are some of the IT matters inside of an organization and out? So why is IT important? What are some of the trends? Our guest today, Sean, is the CEO of QDS, like I mentioned. Sean, welcome to the show.
Hey, Aaron, thanks for having me, man. Excited to be on. Look forward to talking about stuff.
Yeah, excited to have you. For those of you who don't know Sean has been at QDS for 10 years. I actually met Sean probably 3 years ago, and I consider Sean somewhat of a mentor, being a CEO of QDS, who is a couple years ahead of Opcala. Sean, I guess tell the listeners a little bit more about yourself, your background, how you ended up at QDS, what does QDS do, et cetera.
Yeah, so Aaron, man, I grew up in Charlotte, been here since I was 3 years old, so very close to a lifer with based on how many people commute here every year. It seems like I was a baseball player growing up. Never really thought I'd go into the family business. Had a good career at the University of North Carolina. Was blessed to be drafted by the Oakland A's. Ended up tearing up my shoulder diving for a ball in the outfield. So thought I'd come, work while I was rehabbing. Never really got any better, and really kind of fell in love with sales and being a competitive athlete. Started back in 2003, honestly, with the company as a straight commission salesperson, and worked my way up, have been the CEO for the last 10 years here. And we have really moved our company from a company that sold mostly desktop equipment that did not connect to anything, to the majority of our growth has been investing in systems technologies for financial institutions that do connect to their banking core system or their EFT provider. So, IT has become a very important part of the solutions that we've implemented through our growth over the last 10 years.
Absolutely. So that the listeners get a better understanding. So how big is QDS today, and how much has it grown over the last couple of years?
Yeah, I mean, we have been blessed with a huge growth streak. Probably over the last 6 years, we've grown from roughly a $5 million business to, we did just under $22 million in revenue last year. We're spread across 12 states. So we support community banks and credit unions that range from, maybe tens of millions in assets up to, I think our largest account is now 100 billion in assets. So kind of that community and regional size institution. So it's a very dynamic environment, and certainly we'll talk about how banking is shifting these days towards technology.
Yeah, and maybe before we get into banking, I want to start with you personally, and then QDS, and then we'll get into some of the industry tech trends. But I kind of want to know personally, in your life, what are some of the technologies that are key to you, or that you use every day, that really help you function, help Sean as a CEO function, that you couldn't live without?
Yeah, I'm one of those weird, I think we're called Zennials, right? So I was born in 81, so I'm kind of right on that line of, I did play Oregon Trail growing up, and, remember that. And I'm not a digital native, but, technology really runs my life. So
did you feed your ox meager portions too?
I'm sure I died of typhoid or something along the way as well. You never know what's going to happen on that. And if you watch 1883, it brings that whole trend back to life. But
there you
go. Unfortunately, as a CEO, I live and die on my phone. I do have an Apple iPhone, so I certainly play with a variety of apps that keep me tuned in, really live and die on my calendar. We have certainly done a lot more streaming as of late. So we have, I have young kids. I have twin 3-year-olds and an 8-year-old. So Disney Plus has become a very big deal in our household. And we run a Google Mesh internet system to make sure that, Wi-Fi carries throughout the house. So it is normally when I travel for work when that technology tends to break, and you always get the call from your wife going, what's wrong with the TV, or why isn't our internet working? It's like, I don't know what I can do from Tennessee today, honey. But, so Yes, we
That's
are.
all your fault. You probably could, but that's your fault, you know?
That's
No, I'm just
right.
kidding.
That's right. But we are very dependent on the internet at our house, and my oldest is very into Roblox and some of the gaming community. So it's definitely a tech dependent environment in my household for sure.
Yeah, and so you also mentioned, you know, we'll get into the banking and the community credit unions, but QDS also started working as mostly an equipment for banks for cash management, is from what I understand. Not a whole lot of technology, I guess, in the beginning, but you guys have evolved considerably in technology as well. So maybe what was the cause for some of the changes, or at what point did you guys decide to get, I guess, more technological and support and the why behind it maybe?
Yeah, I mean, so you figure a lot of the legacy products that we used to sell are like the dollar bill counters that you see in the movies that the casinos run. So, you know, like if a bank branch would open, that might be $2,000 to $5,000 in revenue, and we might get a couple pieces of equipment, and we'd be happy with that. Well, as we look strategically, you know, a lot of automation technology and how do we handle cash and coin and check transactions was really moving towards things that integrate to the bank or credit union's core system, offer greater functionality, and those solutions might range from, say, $25,000 to $75,000. So as we became more expert in technologies like that, you know, our deal sizes start to move up, and now, you know, we have multiple deals that are typically in the seven-figure realm, which that wasn't even you know, we used to be kind of a rounding error in that equation, and now, you know, we're doing $1, $2, $5 million deals with, you know, technology and all these integrations, and it's much more of a IT and software type environment than, yes, it's a physical piece of equipment that has physical motors and wheels and whatnot. So it's been an interesting transition and a lot of expertise that we've had to learn over time, but it's been a wild ride.
And really opportunity driven. It sounds like, you know, there was an opportunity to help people more grow revenue within QDS. So you guys decided, okay, well, we need to be able to be the thought leaders, be the people to do that for our customers.
Absolutely. I mean, we are very big on selling with integrity, not trying to get the most revenue, but the right revenue. A lot of what Opcala is based on as well, frankly, but, you know, really trying to help clients achieve results. And the technologies today just happen to be more impactful. And as our industry continues to struggle, like many, with staffing issues, you know, our automation technology can handle a lot of that lift of, well, how do we get business done when we're struggling to replace, you know, Tammy Teller or whatnot in that environment. So, you know, not only is our equipment counted on, but it has a significant impact to client service and customer experience.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I want to come back to that because I'm assuming the last 2 years have made it even more eye-opening for some of your customers with COVID and the lack of people and the inability for people to come in. And so, but before we get there, let's go back a second. So as a CEO of QDS, right, you all, I think, operate, I think the last time I talked to you was 20 plus states. You all are somewhere around 80 to 100 employees. When you think of IT as a CEO, like how do you guys really consider IT inside your organization? Is it part of every function, or is it more of an internal function? What is IT to QDS?
Yeah, I would say, like any company, you know, at times we have fallen prey to, maybe we're not as automated as the technologies that we sell, but, you know, we have done a good job of migrating things to the cloud. You know, we were ready for hybrid work before COVID hit. So the fact that we had the majority of our technology allow people to work from multiple places has been beneficial. We have some professional service and managed service employees that are extremely technical and have high volumes of work coming at them. So we've been able to build them custom PCs, and, you know, we have multiple employees running 3, 4 monitors for efficiency. And so the ability to leverage technology to help people get stuff done, you know, as me being that person that really believes in efficiency, you know, you don't want somebody running on an i3 processor with one screen when, geez, if we just invest a little bit more money in technology for them, like, you know, we eliminate 20% of waste of just boot time on their computer. And man, I forget what the numbers are, but I think you're 25 to 30% more efficient by having just a second screen. So now everybody in our company, for the most part, runs at least two, and some are running three or four. So I am a big believer in removing obstacles and setting people up for success, and having the right technology and applications and bandwidth and all of those things are vital to success, because no one wants to have that frustration of running a 486 processor, 10 years ago, and like, man, it takes me 10 minutes for the spreadsheet just to run, versus having them have the right tools.
Yeah, and it's interesting, like what you said, right? And we see this with our customers all the time. It's you have your dedicated IT people, but what you just described is really in every function, every different part of your business, there's an IT component that is part of it. And so, whether it's finance processing a spreadsheet, or whether it's customer service supporting a customer and communicating with them, even though they might not be dedicated to supporting QDS's internal IT systems, they're dealing with IT and technology that is making their life easier or more complicated if it's not working. And so, that's where we get into and say, okay, how are organizations adapting? So before we move on to the next topic, one other question on QDS. So you operate in 20 plus states. How do you communicate with, and maybe during COVID was a good test. You said you guys were already set up for hybrid. How do you guys communicate with your employees, and how do you make sure that you have that same experience of working in the office or being able to work hybrid?
Yeah, I in honesty can't quite take credit for 20. We're in 12 states today, which is
12.
Still
Okay, 12. I was giving you extra credit.
Still plenty. We may be in 20 soon enough. We'll see. We are an Office 365 shop, so as Teams has continued to evolve, I think we did the same kinds of things that everyone else did through COVID. It was just really setting frequency around, all right, we were doing, maybe leadership communication 3 times a week, whether it was Zoom or Teams, to just keep those communication things live. We do a lot of video conferences still. Teams is primarily our internal platform. Frankly, I like Zoom from a presenting environment a little bit better. So we do have 1 or 2 Zoom licenses. Same with recruiting, like Teams can be a little bit clunky if someone doesn't have that environment. So Zoom is a little more consumer friendly. We try the virtual happy hours. We have weekly team meetings that are all run virtual. So I think everyone used COVID to get comfortable with that environment. We just happen to already have the platform ready with Office 365. So that really allowed us to migrate quickly. Now we learn best practices through that of what was working, what can fall back to in-person meetings. But, we're probably still running as a company 30 to 50, video team meetings a week, no doubt.
Yeah, we're seeing that across the board. And you mentioned Zoom and Teams. We obviously work with a lot more than that, but the Zoom Teams, which meeting platform are you on next? Bingo game of how many meeting platforms can I be on in a day? That seems to be the norm during COVID. Just curious, was there any, outside the box? You said virtual happy hours. That was kind of outside the box. Any other kind of cool ways people connected via technology through COVID?
One of my favorite tools, which we purchased more for the sales side of our house, is Vidyard or Vidyard, however you want to say that. So
and we'll put this in the show notes too for those listening. So
yeah,
great technology.
Canadian company. If you want a great person to follow, Tyler Lassard, who's their SVP of marketing, is one of the best creative people I know. But that is a tool that I use often to communicate everything internally. So I will record a lot of 5 to 10 minute company update videos. So whether we have new hires or policy changes, or we're celebrating some wins on the sales side, I typically communicate that out to all employees. So again, they get to see my face. We're talking about certain things. It makes it a little more personal than just, hey, here's a bulleted email that you're probably going to ignore and not read. So we have really leveraged that. We use it a lot on our sales side for one-to-one, video interaction. We can also record things. So from a tool set, that is probably, we are, I believe, the only one in our industry that uses that. I believe BombBomb is a similar competitor to them, but really have loved Vidyard as a platform.
Yeah, I was going to say, for all sales folks listening out there, pay attention to Vidyard and BombBomb. both are great tools to communicate with prospects as well. So
I do not have an affiliation with either of those. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah, well, we're just sharing what we're using. So, no, I mean, I think that's great, and it's cool. We've seen all over the map, like from virtual yoga classes that people are doing to someone the other day was talking about a system called Bonusly, where they're doing like point sharing system among employees to virtually reward each other. So it's cool to see what technology is doing for people to collaborate and communicate. So, all right, so let's switch gears. So QDS is working in we'll call it in the finance industry with local community banks, credit unions, probably others that I'm missing. You deal with automating cash management via ATMs, traditional cash machines, et cetera. You're a managed service company to help support that. You do professional services. So you do sort of work in a technology portion of these organizations. So from your perspective, maybe let's start with the struggles. Where are local community banks, credit unions, maybe where are they struggling to adopt technology, or where do they struggle with like why to use new technology?
Yeah.
What are the kind of like maybe objections you guys get and overcome?
I think a lot of the true technology struggle is resource bandwidth and talent. So not every community bank in rural America can recruit the IT talent that they need. When you start looking at it's a highly regulated industry with very, secure data. You're dealing with people's finances. So how am I managing user access and all of these things that tie into how do I keep my customers' information safe without having to hire, 50 IT people if I'm a 10 branch community bank. Those have been some of the struggles. So now as we start to look at, well, how do we keep their network safe but offer more functionality for a customer? That's where that IT and kind of retail collide of, hey, we want to offer better digital transactions. We want to offer a great online banking experience. We want our people to be able to do more at ATM machines. Maybe we want to have a teller pop up on the screen and help somebody execute a transaction. Well, a lot of that has server, components on the back end, and are they running in a cloud environment? So all of those things of taking what used to be a very on-premise, highly tight, controlled AS400 environment to new cores that are coming with cloud-based architecture and all these APIs, and what are we going to be able to connect to? That's a different talent set than just, hey, can I make sure my network is secure? Am I using multi-factor authentication? Those are legitimate challenges on the IT side for financial institutions to protect and safeguard very important data and then manage that against how do we tie a better customer experience by implementing new technology without breaking stuff.
I assume you all are part. I mean, you mentioned customer experience. You all are very much a part of the customer experience, though. Like if I drive through a community bank, I'm probably using an ATM at some point. So I have to imagine that you are dealing with more than just IT in an organization too. So who's typically getting involved, and where do you get maybe the most objections to automation? Is it in IT? Is it in, from a C-suite level? Is it someone that just doesn't understand it?
No, I mean, typically we engage with the C-suite, or we'll call it retail. So retail is a banking term. Member experience is a credit union term. So who owns, like, if someone goes to a branch, what can they do, and what are they able to accomplish through technology or the people at those locations? So normally you have visionaries that are going, we want to be able to offer these services, and that's typically who we're working with. And then IT has to be the one that says, okay, well, we're running, do we run a VDI environment? Do we run an on-premise server? Do we outsource our IT today to a third-party provider? So depending on the size and complexity of the organization, there are still plenty of smaller community banks and credit unions that do use managed service providers, or, they outsource a lot of that IT responsibility. So, we're typically on their network, and if they would like us to be able to remote into their ATM, which is one of the services that we offer. And they're like, great, we would love for you to be able to do that. Well, now we're talking firewall settings and, hey, is your ATM traffic separate from your main traffic? Well, I don't know that answer. So, we have really, really sharp IT people that know their environment, and they're gonna put very strict guide rails up on this is what we're gonna allow you to do and this is not. And then there's some people that are like, I don't know how this stuff works. Let me get the answers on how we can set up this subnet and all that stuff. That it's kind of a wide range of experience sets out there for sure.
And I'm sure you guys come across varying levels of technology, if you will, within the branches. So some probably very manual still, some pretty innovative. I follow you on LinkedIn. I see some of the branches and they look like spaceships compared to some of the other ones. So I guess in your guys' experience, and this is not just you, but your organization, QDS, when you are helping someone, when you see a local branch, a retail branch of whatever, a credit union or a local bank that seems to do, we'll call it IT well, or customer experience well, or technology well, what do you see that they're doing different than maybe the folks that are a little bit behind or not adopting, or it's very clear that their technology is not as advanced as others?
Yeah, I would say probably up even into COVID, right? The financial industry was known as kind of the laggard, right? Like, hey, you watched retail press forward and a number of other industries that were a lot more digital transformation ahead of the finance market. So I think those who understand and have understood the change of the consumer behavior over the last 2 to 4 years, they have invested and are typically, some of them are even willing to be bleeding edge on, we know we need this from an experience standpoint. We know there may be some gaps in the process or things we don't understand, but they have invested in technology and are willing to take some risks on new branch formats and new ways to deliver technology, versus we still do run into the people that, hey, this has worked for 20 years. Like, our processes are pretty good. I don't know if our customer base is really going to, adopt to this. And I think those are the people that really struggled through COVID. They had to close locations. And now it's like, well, gee, we have forced our consumer base to maybe an outdated online banking system. Maybe they're doing transactions, through the drive-through tube system that wasn't designed to do the types of transactions they have to do because the branch is closed, versus the people that were on the front end of that curve invested in technology. It was a fairly simple migration for, hey, you can use our ITM machines, or, hey, we've got a great online banking app that we can direct you to. And, their adoption skyrocketed, but that investment had been made prior with some vision. So we do run into those that are ahead of the curve and tend to be more successful, and then those that are struggling to keep up and don't have a great plan to get there.
For those of us who don't know what ITM versus an ATM is, what's the difference?
Great question. So ITM truly stands for interactive teller machine, which typically is associated with the ability to have a live teller come up on the screen and help you execute a transaction. We also use that in terms of connecting to the bank's core software platform so that you can do a lot of the things a teller would do in self-service. So kind of an ATM on steroids, if you will, not just cash withdrawal and deposit, but loan payments and large withdrawals and having access to all of your accounts, not just your primary checking. So yes, good pause to ask that question. Interactive teller machine.
Yeah, and I've not come across them very often, but I'm tired of punching the ATM when it doesn't do what I need. So maybe I need to interact with ITMs a little bit more often.
Maybe you need more money in your account. I don't know. Maybe,
Well, see, that's the thing. I've never needed a cash counter because we just don't have that around here. So I think I can answer this question for a lot of the banking industry, but I'm going to ask it anyways, and I want to hear your thoughts. So QDS obviously supporting the financial industry, big on automation, but you support a finance industry that, everyone right now is concerned with security. Obviously, everyone's concerned about what they see in the news. But from your perspective, what are some of the trends that you at QDS are watching that you think you need to pay attention to that'll affect you in the next couple of years? And same with your customers. What What is the local rural branch looking at, the credit unions? What trends do they need to be paying attention to?
Going back to resources, I think one of the huge trends is to do more managed services with people. So we have benefited from that. Of most of our clients are happy that we can do A, B, C, D, and E for them, and they're willing to pay us a small fee to execute that so their internal resources can focus on other priorities.
Is that because of instability and being able to keep people retained and get people in the offices? Is that what's driving that?
And just so as more and more technology is coming into, the financial institution, if I had 10 projects before, I've got 25 now. So if I'm able to take a task list, and if my vendor on my behalf can handle 5, 6, 8 things for me, and I don't have to hire 3 more people to handle those tasks, manage those tasks, balance those tasks, that is where a lot of people are having success. A lot of people have looked at outsourcing ATMs altogether, where the institution is just going to pay a monthly fee. We own the terminal. We are managing all of the processes. So, hey, now I don't have to have 3 people in the back office in my ATM department. I just have my name on the terminal and someone else is functionally running and operating the terminals.
Would that increase the compliance for you all, that you wouldn't have to maintain and requirements? I assume it would.
Yes, it does. We have invested heavily in a due diligence packet to make sure that we are utmost in compliance and staying up with regulations, et cetera. The other key trend is, what is going to happen with the Bitcoin and cryptocurrency and blockchain? So
I was waiting for you to bring that up.
Not an area of strength for me. I have tried, I've sat through a couple webinars. I normally get about 5 to 10 minutes in, like, okay, this is starting to make sense. And by about 15 to 20 minutes, by the time they get into NFTs and other stuff, like I'm lost. And, for something that was supposed to be unhackable, we've now seen multiple hacking attacks on blockchain environments. I think there was like $150 million loss in one of the gaming things in the last week or two. So, all of this stuff around unpenetrable security, and this is the beauty of blockchain, and we're already seeing that failing. But we are seeing a lot more of the financial institutions react stronger. It was kind of like Bitcoin, whatever. And now it's like you're starting to see financial planners involved in it. We have a couple ATM clients that are offering Bitcoin on their ATMs. We do not offer that service today, but there's a lot more conversations going on around how is crypto going to change what's going on. And so I think that's just an interesting trend to watch. And do we continue to see challenges with security that will scare people away from that? Or do people continue to have less trust in our government or governments around the world and see that there is a lot of value in a blockchain environment that's, decentralized, if you will?
Yeah, I was waiting for you to bring up crypto because I think every bank is trying to figure out how to deal with the crypto NFT, the whole movement and where it goes. And I agree. I don't think anyone knows the answer, but I'm assuming you guys are getting this question in every conversation. We're hearing it on our side, securing digital wallets. How do you maintain security around that? So I definitely think more to come over the next couple of years. What about on QDS's side? So you kind of answered from the bank side, focusing on managed service, focusing on maybe what's happening with crypto. I assume that second one also affects you all and how you address crypto in the future. But what do you see as a tech trend or something in the future predict, like where will QDS be in 5 years using technology and how will it be different than today?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think that's one of the challenges as a leader. And through my lifetime, we have seen the technology curve shorten and shorten and shorten. So what used to be a 10-year curve is now 5. What used to be a 5-year curve is now 2. So I have a lot of trouble, which is why, it's always nice to have people in other verticals to like, what's going on in your industry? Like, am I completely blind? I pay a lot of attention since we are a service company at our heart. I watch people like Morris Jenkins and other people that are delivering services and like, hey, they got the cool technician on the app thing. And, a lot more people are building out app infrastructure. So, could I see us investing in a mobile app or offering more of a customer facing portal environment? Probably. Our company is very big on transparency. So is technology a way for us to, again, be more transparent with our clients? We use a lot of software as a service tools. So we're working in the similar workspace with our clients. So those would be some trends that I think about as a company, is how do we make ourselves more transparent to our clients, share more data, but also have a good comfort and security, making sure our vendors have multi-factor authentication. Obviously, we're evaluating phone systems and this whole UCaaS platform environment. So, man, it is really hard to know 3 to 4 years in advance, like, where is technology going to move, and am I set up for that move, or am I just going to miss it? And you can become a laggard very quickly, and that's always a concern at my level. Is, man, I feel like in a lot of areas we're progressive, and if I'm not paying attention in 2 years, we could be 5 years behind. So it's a legit challenge for leaders.
The cycle has definitely shortened. And I think to your point, we don't really know what's going to happen with a lot of technology in the future. Some you hear about the term for years and it's just a buzzword, and some takes off immediately. But the customer experience that you talked about, the mobile app or whatever it may be, we're hearing that across the board. We have a customer who they make the metal brands for like automotive parts, for the stamping and the forming of it. You wouldn't think that's a super innovative consumer tech, but just like Domino's shows you how the pizza is being made, when it's in the oven, when it came out, who is taking your pizza, when it's going to arrive. A lot of people are kind of reaching for that and saying, we want that in our organization to give more visibility and transparency, like you said. So I think you're going to see a lot more of that over the next couple of years. By a couple of years, we'll probably be talking about even more invasive technology on how things are being done.
I think through COVID, just to tack onto that, we've seen the backside of that, right? So there is a ton of frustration with supply chain. So, people who have not invested in that technology, like, gee, I ordered my couch, 2 months ago. I have no idea if you've made it. Is it in shipping? So I'm constantly having to call the store, like, where's my stuff? Same with cars. My dad had gotten on the list to buy a new car, and it was due out in April, and he called late March, and they're like, yeah, I don't even think they've made it yet in Japan. So it's like, there is this big chasm developing from the people that do that well and are transparent versus those that haven't, and customers get very frustrated in the unknown. And as that process has really drawn out due to supply chain, that makes it even more frustrating of, gee, I had to pay you a bunch of money up front. I have no idea when my stuff's going to come in, and gee, I hope it's right when it gets here.
Yeah, we're going to see it continue, and it's going to get more and more important to organizations. So, two more questions before I let you go, Sean. One is, I want to know. So you mentioned a couple things you use personally. What is your favorite technology you use day to day? Personally, it could be in your personal life. It could be at work. What do you use that you would recommend to others?
Oh, I am not a big fan of Apple, the company, but I use their stuff often. I mean, I think about what a difference to be able to use a technology like FaceTime. How many iMessages do I send in a day? So if I think about how efficient the iOS environment and applications in that environment have made me, how great the pictures are you can take now. I mean, if you think about everything that you can do with that phone in your pocket, that is essentially my operating environment, right? And then if you do multi-channel or omni-channel well, if I had an iPad, it would be the same experience. So, I cannot function. I don't know that my phone is ever like more than 6 feet away from me. So if I think about a technology that I live and breathe on, it's, audio phone, video phone, whether it's Zoom or FaceTime or you name it. If someone took away my phone for a week, I would be in trouble. No doubt about it.
All right. We won't make you go live out in the woods for a week, but if you ever do, let me know. So last question for you, Sean, before wrap up. So If you were speaking, you were giving the Sean Farrell State of the Union in front of 1 million people, and you could leave them with a piece of advice about technology in your industry and what we've talked about today, what would it be? What would you tell someone to pay attention to and adopt? Or it could be internal, it could be with your customers, et cetera.
I think the best advice I would give, make sure your people understand why. Technology is going to be a bigger and bigger part of our overall environment. So educating them on why multi-factor authentication is important, why, all of this information security reports to me. So I don't care how many, and we have invested 6 figures a year in information security tools. The number one phishing attack is human error. So if you can educate people on why you have processes, why these things are important, I think that will help make you successful. Why are we using these tools the way we're using them? Why is this important? I think the job of any good leader, and any advice I can say, is don't just tell them what, but tell them why. And I think they will better understand, and it will resonate versus, yeah, this is the process, just follow what we say. So I guess that's my 2 cents, if you will, on making sure people understand the why.
I think that could be the title for your future book you write, is don't just tell them what, tell them why. So I'm starting your author career now. Sean, thank you for joining us. If you guys want to check out Sean and his company, qualitydatasystems.com. We'll put show notes in here with some of the technologies that we talked about. Sean, any parting thoughts for the folks?
No, technology is a big part of our daily lives. I would encourage anyone out there thinking about IT. I mean, there are so many paths and so many things you can do, especially on the security side of the house. So I continue to say that there are paths that don't have to involve a 4-year degree that can make you very valuable in today's business economy. So if you're someone out there, and I'm getting on my soapbox, that doesn't have the 4-year college degree and thinks you can't amount to anything without that piece of paper, I'm here to tell you, you can do it. You can be a valuable part of any organization, and you can do a lot of that learning in the real world, so to speak. So don't put too much countenance in that, I guess.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. So, Sean, thanks for joining us today. For all you listeners out there, thank you guys for listening in. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We're also running this on YouTube if you're not watching this. So thank you for joining. I hope you guys have an awesome rest of the week.
Sounds good, man. Take care.
Thanks, Sean.
Thanks for listening. The IT Matters podcast is produced by Apkalla, an IT advisory firm that helps businesses navigate the vast and complex IT marketplace. Learn more about Apkalla at opkalla.com.